Hi, I'm Chris from airwindows, and here's something that's been a long time coming. It's one of my sort of hidden away compressor algorithms. Bear with me, I'm sort of riding through stuff right now and still putting out plugins because I would like to. Here is VariMu. Now, the thing to know about VariMu is that it is similar to Pressure 4, which is already out, so I'll be comparing the two for you. But it's not the same thing as Pressure 4, even given that it's got slightly different things. Like Pressure 4, the way to make it approximate VariMu is to crank muiness up all the way as far as it'll go. But they're not quite the same, all the same. For instance, here we've got this thing, and if I engage it, I can get an exaggerated VariMu style thing going on. I can pull it back, I can turn it up, and I can mess with the speed. Speed can go really fast like this. Makes it go kind of strange. What happens with VariMu is this. Here's what's different between the two. Pressure 4 is doing this odd little sort of VariMu style variable release, variable everything. It's a fairly simple algorithm, but it's a twisted little thing, and I've always found it rather baffling. It's lived on in a series of things. And that algorithm is tracking a single point of sample measurement, and it's going into the algorithm at the rate that the sample is coming in. VariMu changes that because VariMu is referring to the previous sample as well as the sample that it's on, and then it's multiplying whichever is the louder of those two by itself. So VariMu is essentially a root mean square style compressor rather than just a regular style compressor. That means that loud peaks hit it much harder, but and it'll also broaden those peaks slightly so that little high frequency stuff doesn't get by it as easily. And the difference in sound is kind of like this. Here it's kind of cleanish. You can push it quite hard and it just sort of clamps. But it's very unnatural sounding. Whereas VariMu, you really start to hear that. And the secret here is to pull it back so that it'll clean up, knowing that it has a much more complicated way of engaging with the sound. In a way, it's less digital sounding, and that Pressure is capable of fluidly handling all of this stuff that's going by very quickly, and it's almost like an imaginary compressor. It can do insane things in a blink of an eye. But VariMu has a more of an organic sound, but it's not doing any sort of fake analog-y kind of stuff. The most fake analog-y kind of thing it's doing is that doubling of the transient, and that's just to spread it out. Here we have Pressure. You can sort of feel it working with the bass there. Off. On. And then we turn on VariMu. back to pressure. I mean, it's got a cleanness, it's got a niceness to it, but you turn up VariMu. Actually, here, I've got something better to do with all of this. I know that this collection of sounds has a drum recording of sorts in it. So what we can do is crank it up with the drums and see what they do. We'll first do pressure 4. And we'll turn it on. Thank you. Okay, that's pretty insane. Arguably too much compression. But what happens if we do the other one? See what I said about how pressure sounds like it's an imaginary compressor, but VariMu has a more organic and believable quality about it? It as acting like a slammed analog compressor because of the way that it reacts to the overloads. Like there's our wonderful pressure doing its insanity. Totally dynamic inversion. And then VariMu, that's acting more like a hardware box. And then, as we dial it back, we can start to get into some of these kind of naturalistic things going on. And just kind of exaggerate it in that way. And of course we can also mess with the speed as well. Or even, since this is drums, let's just crank out the speed. And we get this nice sort of smash that's not quite distorted, but kind of still mostly is. And again, we can go back to pressure 4. And that lets you do some horrible, strange things. And we'll go to comparable settings. And again, what we're seeing here is this is a really good special effects thing. But then this one kind of sounds more like what a analog compressor might do in the same situation. And then we can go right back to something funny like Alien Kittens. You think that sounded horrible? Check this out. Comparable settings. course, they're smashed, so let's dial that back a little bit. And let's slow speed all the way down. Clean. Pressure engaged. And that gives you some useful compression. But then we turn on VariMu. Completely different feel. And again, that's because it's checking the two nearest samples for the hottest transient, and it is also squaring the input coming in just for the sense circuit so that it will react in a very different way. As follows. Got this one. Pressure handles smashingness this way. VariMu handles it this way. Got a little boost there, turning it on and off. Doesn't react instantly. So that's an interesting behavior, hanging onto some of those notes. As everything else freaks out around it. One thing you will notice with VariMu, which is also the case with Pressure 4, is that if you kick it in, you're going to lose some of the lowest of the bass because it's a compressor and it's going to step on that stuff. And I believe I can demonstrate that with both VariMu and Pressure 4 this way. Listen to the low bass there. And it's been sort of raised up a little bit. And then VariMu. Arguably even more. And this is also going to be subject to how fast speed is working. I'll demonstrate. It's about how hard you're hitting the compressor, and it's about how fast the compressor will bounce back. And in these ways, you can take the deepest of low bass and sort of lift it up and make it punchier by the way the compressor addresses it. Like this is more deep. And this is lifted up some. And I can probably also show that with empty pictures because that has a deep bass guitar. That's taking a lot of the bass out relative to what the raw thing is. Here's the original low bass. You can see it down around here acting. Then, it's a little lower than it was right now. The way that a bus compressor works on this kind of thing is it kind of reshapes what the bass is doing, because the really deep low stuff wants to sort of wobble around at very low frequencies, and the compressor is going to tend to restrict that, bring it in. Anyways, here's Pressure and VariMu. Pressure you've already got. or you can have it if you want it because it's free and you can download it from airwindows, etc., etc. And VariMu is new to the VST era of airwindows, and it's a little more organic and analog hardware sounding than Pressure 4 is, which also makes it maybe a little bit less clean, but in many ways it's just as clean as the other one, it's just different. It's handling stuff and reacting to stuff differently. So that makes it just another option that you can try. Like after having listened to it working out in a bunch of different things on this video, you might have impressions as to which one you like best. If not, download both of them, try them out, and figure out which one you like best, or keep both, because you can always do that too. Oh, I've been forgetting, like, what with all of the personal tragedy and stuff that people who are following me know about, I completely forgot, like at the last video, to even mention that I'm doing a Patreon. And the Patreon kind of is, it helps this kind of thing go on. It'll help me do grander projects in future. And it's also a way of getting the word out there as to what airwindows is and that people should pay attention to it. Because if the bigger the Patreon gets, the more general attention it will attract, and that lets more people discover this that I'm doing. Because, you know, if there was no Patreon and there was no people paying attention, then nobody would find out, and what fun would that be? Anyways, I'm tired and there's many videos that I must make before I sleep, but I think this counts as having finished making the VariMu video. So enjoy VariMu, and I hope you like it. Thanks.